back to another week's episode of Three Simple Men Making Their Way Through the Galaxy. I'm Tom, with me is Ryan and Mike. And today, once again, we're still in the Clone Wars Season 1, Episode 6. I forgot the title of the name, guys.
Downfall of a Droid.
What was it?
Downfall of a Droid.
Ah, yes, Downfall of a Droid. That is it. What do we think about this episode?
Tugs at the heartstrings, I think.
Yep.
Let's get into the quote real quick, just so we can have that out of the way. The quote is, "Trust in your friends, and they will have reason to trust you." So that's the quote they give us at the beginning of this episode, where we start off with, our usual introduction, claiming that the clone army has had a hard time with a lot of attacks from the Separatists, specifically General Grievous. And right off the bat, we get Anakin talking to Obi-Wan about how Grievous keeps attacking them. And Anakin, and I'm going right into my actual quote that I pulled out of the episode, Anakin says, "Seems like the coward always knows where and when to find us," which I think goes back to another previous episode, or our previous episodes where we've talked about the spy situation. And it's like, well, yeah, he knows where you are because Palpatine, they don't say that this time, but we're at a point where, they know that Grievous is on his way and they got to figure out what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's given us a whole little dialogue of a backstory of the whole Clone Wars situation is vastly intense. It's getting intense. It's hard for the Republic to keep up, especially when the Separatists seem like they're always on the offensive because they know where they are. And we see it as a starting battle, too. And with the Separatists, General Grievous in general, shows up to the planet that they're stationed. I did not catch the name of the planet, but they did go through the asteroid field thinking it would be a safe bet. And I don't know if you guys caught this, but what have we seen going through an asteroid field pay off?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. I know we're jumping ahead, but yeah, I mean, flying through an asteroid field. I don't know what odds 3PO had it, but of course he was shut up very quickly to say, "Never tell me the odds." So, but yeah, I would say before that battle happened, of course, you have Obi-Wan advising retreat, and you have Anakin or Ahsoka being like, "You should listen to Obi-Wan's," and then Obi-Wan has that quip of, "Oh, you should listen to your old Padawan." It's like, yeah, like you listen to me. So you had that little ha 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 between Anakin and Obi-Wan there, but yeah, it's a bold strategy to go through an asteroid field like that. So
it's one of those situations like people will look at him like, who trained her? He did. And who trained him? That would be me.
Well, and they were smart enough to realize, right, that that's what Grievous is he's gonna do. He's gonna go through the asteroid field. And I want to say I think this is the first time, maybe, that Anakin is not running headfirst into a trap, but instead is setting a trap, which I thought was kind of interesting, because usually his MO is, even when he knows a trap's happening, to just run right into it and spring the trap to figure out what's going on. But so this was kind of a refreshing change of pace to see them decide that they're going to set up their own trap. We do get the number 5, or the 5th reference or quote of "I've got a bad feeling about this." So I did catch it. I did write it down, and this is our 5th one chronologically. So, and said by Anakin. So that was fun.
oh, there was actually, I forgot about one thing, because as they were going through the asteroid field, Grievous was like, "Oh, we shouldn't have the high ground because they'll get us better." I'm like, well, that's the one time, with the high ground being a popular Star Wars meme, that's the one time it doesn't prevail in space combat.
Did
I
he
don't know
say
if that's
high
right.
ground? I don't think he said high ground.
I was pretty sure
Yeah,
he
but
said high ground.
no, I think it was more
He
of
just said
we have
coming
to
from
fight
above.
above them. We have to
Yeah.
fight above them, and
I like the refer. I get where you're going, Mike.
yeah, I do too. And just talking about that, it's like now talking about the whole battle itself. We
Mhm.
see Anakin with the idea of the walkers being placed on the asteroids itself, because we see General Grievous just pretty much say power the forward shield cannon, the forward shields. So
Yeah.
pretty much their front is protected, but everything else left vulnerable.
Then you had the battle droids like, oh yeah, what about our rear? It's like, oh, we'll be fine. And then there was that little,
Which is
because I think
something we saw from Anakin.
we had that in the Malevolence episode, I think, where it's like, oh, that one battle droid that was like, oh, wait a minute, aren't they gonna like dock with our ship, come through the elevator? And it's like, no, your circuits are going crazy. And then of course Obi-Wan Anakin did. So that was like another throwback to a prior week's episode. So of course you have
Always remember one thing, folks: check your six.
that. Yeah.
And apparently listen to the battle droids because they're actually smart.
Yeah, they're the more tactical ones than Grievous. But yes, going back to what you were saying about, I've got a bad feeling about this. What was the context for Anakin saying that?
So I believe it was just them
For our
going
viewers,
in.
of course.
Huh?
Well, for our viewers, of course, because we
But
don't.
yeah, so the context was the trap was being sprung where they decided to all go right for them, and they're all getting shot. What was the context? I'm lost now. I didn't write down the context. Was it
Well,
when he was going looking? No, it was
well,
before.
because it was pretty much what happened was the trap was sprung. The walkers were able to shoot down the ships, and then of course you have Ahsoka and company firing their lasers full front, and that seemed to have more powerful effect. And pretty much Grievous' fleet is being wiped out. Of course, he abandoned ship and it's like, "Oh, battle droid, I guess I'm in charge here." And then, and also along the way, Anakin's ship got hit, but it's just a scratch at the time. But then we see Grievous escaping, and this is the one time it's like, oh, let me go after Grievous because if I destroy him, I can end this war. So you see Anakin hot pursuit. Grievous is ready to fire up the hyperdrive, and Anakin's pushing his engines, and then he sees that shot actually had a bit more of a damage effect than he thought, and that's when he says, "I've got a bad feeling about this," and sees that the ship blew up, and Anakin wasn't able to catch Grievous.
So in what you just said there's some things I'd like to point out. One, Grievous running away yet again seems to be a reoccurring theme for him. He's kind of a coward.
And that's going to be a quote that's going to come up later.
Yeah. And then the other thing that you kind of mentioned there, Anakin risking things and running after Grievous, thinking if I just kill Grievous, I can end the war, because that's what he did a couple episodes ago, right? Gunning it for the
Y-wing, right? Yep.
Yep, and it's all that's kind of his thing. So we see that it hasn't always learned, and of course, I'd argue that this time, him Anakin running head first had terrible consequences. In my opinion, the worst, because it is the first time, I think. Yeah, this is right. This is the absolute first time chronologically where R2-D2 might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? For the most part, he's been, I'm trying to think. Yeah, he hasn't been like,
He's been the hero saving people.
he hasn't been, yeah, at one point he gets like a whole lot of yeah, that hasn't happened. Nope, that's later on. Like, he's just been there, and he's been good.
He saved Queen Amidala's ship in episode 1. He saved Padme from being melted in the droid factory, and probably had a couple other heroic moments there in the Clone Wars. But yeah, this is the first time we've seen R2 in trouble.
And this is going to be a big issue, because the reason for it is because, as we saw, he still has all the information with the battle plans. And so this is a big what if situation. Like, what if R2 gets captured?
Well, this is the debate I want to have.
Okay.
So So I think this can be this can be fun. So
we got a new segment. Let's debate.
Yeah, let's
oh,
go.
we might all agree. But so what happens with this? Anakin wakes up after being blowing up, and they saved him, but they lost his ship, and we get the where's R2? He's with the ship. We couldn't get him, and we get Obi-Wan Kenobi has been, I'll say, a little, rough with Anakin sometimes in his dialogue, where he kind of like gives him a hard time like an older brother. But this time, I think the first time exhibited no heart, where he says R2 units are a dime a dozen when referring to R2D2. And I wanted to reach into the screen and punch Obi-Wan Kenobi in the face. Then we get Anakin, when he says that, we get the clenched fist of Anakin. He looked like the Arthur meme.
The Arthur meme
there. But we get the clenched fist that Ahsoka sees, and Anakin then says, well, the real problem, Master, is that he has, as you just said, all the information. I didn't wipe his memory. And they're like, oh, it's because he was really helpful as a tactical droid with all that information. Do you think that's all BS? Because I think that's all BS. I'm sure that's true, but I think the reasoning that they brought it up and the reasoning he didn't wipe it is he cares for R2, right? Like we do.
I love
R2.
The cover up of his compassion for the droid.
I love R2.
You don't. I mean, if you're Obi-Wan at this point, it's like who R2 is. He saved your life as well in Episode 1. Why? You're a Jedi. You should be showing some compassion, especially for a droid who's been so critical so far.
This conversation here is going to come up way down the line, but I think it might be safe to say that Obi-Wan Kenobi does not view droids as they're barely even there. He doesn't even they are just machines. And he doesn't, because, I don't remember ever owning a droid. That's something he's going to say down the line. And I think that might be kind of what they put in here is like, yeah, at the end of the day, like, us as viewers, we love C-3PO, we love R2-D2. There's plenty of other droids we're going to meet along the way that we get attached to and we care about, and other characters care about them. Obi-Wan doesn't. Obi-Wan does not care about droids.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole, like, him being pissed off, like, wow, you didn't delete the memory banks, like, what would happen if he fell into the wrong hands, and just, like, and then somehow, like, Anakin's like, oh, yeah, and then Obi-Wan's like, yeah, find R2, that's the priority, and you see Anakin with a slight smile, and like, but yeah, still, I mean, how could you hate on R2 and see him the way Obi-Wan does? I mean,
everything.
We have our hot take. We just have our hot take right here. Obi-Wan does not view droids as people. He does not like droids.
Yeah, no, he absolutely just. It's not even that he. I don't think that it's not that he doesn't like them, right? Because we definitely have other characters in the future we're going to see that do not like droids. They have a bias towards droids.
Yeah.
Or hatred towards droids. I think Obi-Wan just doesn't even. I think he just doesn't. They're They're just nothing to him. They're just byproduct. I don't think he.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a computer. It's a ship. It's a he doesn't get attached to the things. And we'll see other characters that get very attached to ships. And we also get attached to ships, I think, as viewers too. And I think Obi-Wan is just no, like, it doesn't, dime a dozen, who cares.
Like you said, I mean, I think with Anakin, with his way of decorating the Jedi Starfighter, it's like his pod racer color scheme, and like all the other Jedi just keep it red and boring. So yeah, you definitely don't see a lot of like personal attachment with Obi-Wan like you would with Anakin.
So some might argue that that's what makes Obi-Wan a true Jedi versus Anakin, right?
No, from a certain point of view.
There it is.
Did you just self-reference our self-referencing of from a previous episode? I feel like you just quoted a previous episode that we quoted. Okay. But with that, I think going more into my point of Anakin doesn't really necessarily, the forefront of his mind isn't R2's got the information and we need to protect that, because if that was the case, he'd just be like, we need to find him and destroy him. We don't need to save him. But we then get introduced to R3S6, aka Stubby, a golden droid for the golden leader of Gold Squadron. And he sucks. For a second, I felt bad for him. I felt, oh, Anakin's not giving him a chance.
It's the first day on the job. I swear, he's gonna get it. He's gonna get it.
Like,
you can just see like how hard Ahsoka's trying to sell R3. It's like, oh well, the R3s are so much faster than the R2 units, and like the fact that like you said, like gold droid for gold leader, gold squadron, and then yeah, it was just Anakin was just like, no, I'm not buying it. Like, sorry, like I miss R2.
Yeah, I mean it's like replacing a pet or a favorite toy as a child that goes missing or something.
Speaking of pets,
like this one, it's cleaner, it's better, it's nicer. Oh, we got it. Is this our first Cosmo cameo?
Cosmo cameo.
Oh,
what's up, Bubba?
That's definitely on. That better be the Instagram short for our this week's episode. Yeah,
you're making your debut, Bub.
First time we got a guest appearance.
Yeah.
And why not? Cosmo's got,
Oh yeah,
great name.
Oh, absolutely.
Unscripted fans, so yeah. This was not planned.
No. He's a good
not that well trained.
But going back to whole before we do this, I kind of wanted to bring up the whole Anakin R2 thing. Going back to last episode, or 2 episodes ago, we brought up the old animated Clone Wars Cartoon Network. The reason why Anakin is so attached to R2, because when Anakin was made a Jedi Knight, when his braid was cut off, he gave it to Padme as a little gift. And in return, she gave R2 to him as a gift before he left for the Clone Wars.
I mean, but not even that. Like you're talking right non-canon, but even canonically, Anakin and R2 destroyed the Trade Federation army during the attack of Naboo.
Phantom Menace, yes.
R2 was his best man, right? He was at the right. He's on right. Is he on his side? And or
you know what? I'm just gonna.
C-3PO would be the best man because he's technically owned by Anakin.
C-3PO was the bridesmaid,
but still, he was there. He's there at the wedding. He's and he hasn't wiped his memory. So, and we know that now. So, like, he knows that R2 knows about the secret, right? The big secret that Anakin's married. So, there's clearly personal connection there. And for a split second, I was like, well, immediately I was like, we're not replacing R2 with his R3S6. I was on Anakin's side, but then Anakin was just being mean. And I was like, oh man, give Stubby a chance. Like, he could be good. And then he's not good. He's terrible. And that brings us to the search for R2 and the Trandosian scavenger ship.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. One of you take it away. I've talked too much.
All right. So I think when we first see they dock at the bottom of the ship, and then you have like that camera thing or whatever that microphone is, like we saw with Jabba the Hutt's palace, like greeting them, and then
I wrote ring doorbell droid.
Yeah, the ring doorbell droid. That's what we'll call it.
Which I actually did write. Is this our first appearance? And then as I was writing it, was like, no, it was probably in the movie because we went to Jabba's palace in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it probably showed up there at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our second appearance of that, and we'll see it again.
And I think that Trandosian Junker was voiced by the actor Ron Perlman. If you don't know who Ron Perlman is, if you ever seen the first 2 Hellboy movies, I will look that up right now.
Dude, he's also in. Let's try to name all the nerdy stuff he's in. He's in Pacific Rim.
Yes.
He's like the dealer of the bits of the big beasts, the kaijus or whatever. what else is Ron Perlman? And obviously Hellboy. I mean, that's my go
Yes.
for him.
He was the voice of the Transdotion Junker, and the name of that was Ga Nacht.
Spell it.
GHANACHKT.
Okay.
So it's like a Nacht, like night for German in a sense. But yeah, he was the voice of the Transocean actor. So just a little deep dive, fun fact for you.
Little Easter egg cameo, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. I like Ron Perlman.
So yeah, we see there's Trandoshan coming in, and they're like, oh yeah, I was shopping for droids. Like, I don't have any. Then of course, like Anakin's like, oh well, Ahsoka over here is, greatly devastated that she lost her droid, and is like putums or whatever. Just like, what the F? You see that look on Ahsoka's. Then she goes along with it, and then Anakin brings out and is like, oh well, I'll trade you another model for that R3. And then once Anakin brings out the credits, like, oh yeah, I might have an R2 unit. Let's go for a walk. And then as they're walking along, they stumble upon some IG assassin droids, and they're like, oh well, the Ahsoka's like, oh, they're harmless, and like, oh, wait till you'll see them in action. And they're like, well, they're powered off, like they're no threat. And as they're going along, and I think at one point, he's like, oh, or no, I think he was like, I'll let you guys search for yourselves. And then Anakin hears a chirp that really sounds like R2. He's like, oh, I know this is R2. He's over here. And then as he asks R3 to open the door, then we start to see R3 not following instructions, which makes Anakin even more pissed off at him. As we see those lovely IG droids that were powered off are now powered on and ready to kill Anakin and Ahsoka. So,
And by the way, did you guys notice what they were wearing?
Ponchos.
Ponchos. And when's the last time we saw a Jedi rock that?
Qui-Gon.
When in doubt, a Jedi has to hide their identity as a Jedi. Poncho it up.
Yep.
Now, do you think old Stubby actually messed up, or it was a trap? Because once they fight these assassin droids and successfully dispatch of them, and then they get through the door, the Trandosian's like waiting there with his ear up against the door. So like,
yeah,
he wasn't just trapping them in there. He knew those droids were going to come out and fight. And now I'm thinking about what happens a little bit later on, which I guess we can move on to, unless you guys want.
I mean, might as well.
So they leave. The Trandosian scavenger, he calls Grievous. We learn that R2-D2 is in fact on board the ship, and he says the Jedi are looking for him, and I'm on my way to the rendezvous point to give you the droid. I want more money though. But then we get back to the sad moment where Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, they all decide, okay, we have to move on. R2 must have been destroyed, or captured, whatever, but they can't find him. So they decide that they're going to go after Grievous, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yes. I think the decision was to split the fleet.
Yes. But then the next thing we know, Anakin decides he's going to go out on his own, so he won't be detected. And as soon as he gets out there, it appears that Stubby turns on the tracking beacon.
Yeah.
And now everyone knows where he is, which again, you'd think is a mistake that Stubby made because he messed up. But then we see Grievous and the droids, and they go, oh, the Jedi tracking beacon's on. And he goes, oh, good, like as expected, or something like that. He like kind of said something that made you think,
yep,
well, was this an accident, or
so it makes you wonder
what else going on here? A little foul play, a little, what's going on?
It makes you wonder, going back to the spies, is this a new play for the Separatists where they need new spies, and by this, like an R3 unit, like a different type of droid that the Republic will not think of even when it's too late, because it's like if I send you a tactical droid that's you can say is programmed from the Republic, the Jedi will have second opinions about it. But it's an R3 battle droid, R3 droid.
Astromech, yeah.
They're not going to bat an eye. They're like, all right, we got a new droid. Let's keep it moving. So is this a new means of espionage for the Separatists?
We'll have to find out.
Yep. So I mean, going off of that, so now you have the tracking beacon. Like even Ahsoka is like, well, this is not right, and she's like, Rex, get everyone you can. Let's go out and get them. And then we see Grievous arriving with another cruiser, and we're seeing, everything like lasers, deploying all the starfighters. He's ready to go after Anakin. And of course, we see another hiccup along the way from Stubby, where instead of activating the hyperdrive, he releases Anakin's ship from the hyperdrive ring, which then gets destroyed. And of course, Anakin, being the pilot that he is, he outsmarts him and destroys the missiles. But at one point, he's standing, I think he had to get Stubby to get the stabilizers working, and then at one point when he's trying to shoot the droid starfighters, turns off the laser cannons, and it's just a complete mess. And thank God Ahsoka showed up with Twilight and was able to bail him out. Because they didn't show up. I mean, Anakin would have been toast. Yeah. And like Anakin was like, "Oh yeah, if we get destroyed, you get blown up with it too." And again, like very, very mean to Stubby, but obviously it's they don't know. I mean, we know that there's something afoot going on here with the droid, but Anakin doesn't know that really Stubby is secretly a separatist.
And then when they escape, I don't know if you guys kept track, General Grievous destroys another B1.
Yeah. Boom, headshot.
So the only other thing I wrote down for this episode that I noticed, did you guys notice the music throughout the episode? It was very like electronic / techno-y.
I was about to say when
when
going through the junkyard, the Trandoshan junker, when I started hearing that like EDM techno music, it gave me the vibes of, have you ever seen the movie Blade with Wesley Snipes? Yeah. Where they go into the club in Europe, it's like
I think it was definitely purposeful because the name of the episode, Downfall of a Droid, it's one of our first episodes where the main kind of character almost, or the main part, is about a droid, right? That's not like the villain droids or whatever. But yeah, so we kind of get like, I felt like it was purposely like electronic techno, kind of giving us that like electronic droid kind of a thing.
And you see like a lot of like DJs now, like Dead Mouse, where they had like or like Daft Punk, when they had like some form of mass that seemed like robotic, that got into electronic and stuff like that. I don't know much about that, but if you do, let us know in the comments.
I feel like it was just on the ship. I don't know if there were like other parts of the episode where they had that, but then
I felt like I heard it before the R2 moment too. I think it was. It got really good during the R2 moment because I was like, "Oh, all right."
Yeah, it was like, that's what we forgot to talk about, that R2 moment of him like
taking out
off the restraining bolt, and then going around and like tricking the IG droid thinking he was getting away, but really just put him in the airlock and activated. It's like, oh, see ya. So that was pretty funny of R2 being resourceful that he always is, but unfortunately wasn't enough as the Trandoshan slaver or scavenger, whatever you want to call him, was right there. It's like, oh, you took off your restraining bolt. It's like, you're gonna be more money than I thought. So yep.
But yeah, so with that, we get a crazy cliffhanger of an episode, right? So the episode comes to an end with no R2.
And Anakin's not giving up on him. So
anything else from you guys?
Let's just see what happens next week. So much at stake now. Now we understand what's going on. It's play it by episode.
All right, Mike.
Well, that's a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for joining Three Simple Men making their way through the galaxy. Hit that like, comment, subscribe, and come back next week for some more Star Wars, Clone Wars content. And let's see what happens with our good friend R2. May the Force be with you always.